Hi guys, today's YouTube video is all about purpose and how to think about it differently, how to maybe find it or create it or get to a spot where you can start asking some questions differently to kind of start that path of finding your purpose. I wanted to talk about this today because I keep hearing about it, whether it's in my practice, in personal conversations, or even on the internet. What is purpose? How do I find purpose? What happens when we feel like we don't have purpose? In my opinion, one of the things that really brings us in for therapy is when we feel like we don't have a purpose anymore. Whether it's we're going through new change or transition in our life, or we have this, what I call identity crisis, when we're going into a new stage in our life and things are changing and it's like, who am I now? Who am I today? What's my purpose in life? What is meaningful? So today, let's talk about purpose. The first thing I wanted to do is read to you what the dictionary says purpose is. So according to the dictionary, purpose, the definition is reason for which something is done or created. And, as I read that, it's like, what does that mean to me? And I want you to think about, what does that mean to you? Purpose is the reason for which something is done or created. And, there's a couple of quotes I'm going to read to you also. But before I jump into that, to me, purpose is, what fuels me, what drives me, what gets me out of bed in the morning, what are the things that matter or that are important to me. That is purpose. And so maybe that is, something that's done that is created, that I create that is meaningful. When we're thinking about purpose, my definition, the way I define it, is not only what fuels me and what drives me, what's something outside of myself, and that brings meaning into my life. So that's just my definition. Please feel free to comment and let me know what your definition of purpose is. But there's a book called by Viktor Frankl. It's Man's Search for Meaning, and I love that book because really he talks about so many different things, and it's his experience as a psychiatrist who was in a concentration camp, and he talks about his experience and finding meaning, and really just looking at life through a whole different lens. It's a wonderful, wonderful book, and there's so many good quotes in there. But the first one I want to read to you is decisions, not conditions, determine what a man is. And to me, this is about purpose. When we get caught up in, things aren't going well, or what's my purpose, we think about all these things that are like happening to us, or this like emptiness that we might feel. The way in which I interpret that quote is purpose is about what decisions are we making that help fuel us, that get us out of that stuck, heavy spot. And there's another quote where he talks about like all of our freedoms must be taken away except for one, and that's the freedom to choose. Now, that's me paraphrasing that quote, and I'll actually put the right one in the comment section. But even the quote I read about decisions, what decisions, what choices are we going to make? And that choice is ours to own. And so when I feel like my purpose, like who am I? When I feel like my purpose is gone, or, it's being redefined, and that's a, reframe, it's redefined. It's not gone, it's redefined. It does feel empty, we might feel lost. And so it's, what are my decisions that are in front of me? So I want you to ask yourself some things. If you are in a spot right now where you feel like there's no purpose, I want you to ask yourself, when are the moments that I feel connected to? Connected to my spouse or partner, connected to maybe the work I'm doing, connected to nature, connected, when do I feel connected to? What's happening in that moment that makes me feel alive? The other question I want you to ask is, what brings joy into your life? And when are those moments that you feel joyful? And it could be just a fleeting feeling, but pay attention. What's happening in those moments that make you feel joyful? The other thing is, when catch yourself smiling, what's happening in that moment? And then the other thing is, what are you doing that feels meaningful? What brings meaning into your life in that moment. And these are, again, these are heavy questions, and I want you to be open to those answers, or open to saying, okay, I'm going to ask myself these questions, and be open to receiving the answers. Meaningful could be, I was at the grocery store and I smiled at someone and they smiled back. That's a connection. And maybe in that moment it's meaningful to you. Meaningful could be you were volunteering your time for, a couple of hours. Meaningful could be, you saw someone walk across the street and they needed some help, and so you went and helped them. Meaningful could be someone needed help with their computer and you helped them. What brings meaning into your life, only you can answer that, and it's different for everybody. So again, these are some questions to ask that help you define purpose. So I think that's, these are some good things to, again, think about. The other quote from Viktor Frankl that I want to read is, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstance, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." And again, I think this is when we feel that like heavy void, or we feel kind of empty. It's not necessarily, he's saying it's not necessarily our circumstances, but it's because we lack meaning and purpose. And that's why I want you, let's not focus on that. Instead, we have this is our choice. We're going to choose to focus on a different set of questions that could hopefully lead either to some answers or more questions that get us on the path of finding our purpose. What brings joy into my life? Catching yourself smiling. When do I feel connected to? Someone once said to me the other day that they ask themselves, like, what fuels or feeds my soul? I thought that was a brilliant question to ask, that, that helps you find those answers that lead to purpose. So again, if you're in that spot right now where it's like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I have a purpose, I understand that does feel low, and at times it can feel empty or very lonely. I want you to take a deep breath and say, I have a choice to make here. What is my decision in terms of how I'm going to start finding where my purpose is? Whether it's turning towards a higher power, asking for help, and asking those different set of questions. So when you wake up in the morning, instead of saying to yourself, I have no purpose, what am I going to do? You say to yourself, I'm going to pay attention to moments I feel connected to. I'm going to pay attention to what feeds my soul. I'm going to pay attention to moments that bring joy into my life, and be really mindful of what is happening in those moments. And in that, and being mindful and being open to it, you start down a different path of finding your purpose. So this is a time that I recommend to everybody. Journal. Pay attention to those things and journal about it, because in our journaling we get clarity, and that is really important. The only thing I'll say is, in the past, if you do feel like you've had those moments of purpose, this is a okay time to look back and say, what was meaningful at that time in my life, and is it anything I want to bring into my current state? And so that's another good time to journal about what was happening in the past that you felt was purposeful and meaningful, and is that anything that you want to bring in your current life right now? All right, the last quote I'll leave you is, and I honestly don't know who said it, but it is a saying that, ask a man to think of his death and then he will know his purpose. And that doesn't mean you got to think doomsday is coming. That means, to me, what that means is, we don't know what tomorrow may bring. What we know is right now. And how do we want to live a life that's meaningful and purposeful? And we don't have to have all of the answers right now. We just have to be open to receiving them, or to experiencing the moment that we feel alive, that we feel that smile or that sense of joy. Remember, life is a gift, and I want you to go and live it. So hang in there. No, it's one day at a time. Remember, mindfulness is being in the present moment, paying attention to what's happening right now. And don't forget to ask those questions about purpose. When do I feel connected to? What brings joy into my life? and catching yourself smiling, what fuels your soul. You know, those are good questions as you're on this journey of life and finding your purpose. All right, guys, have a beautiful day. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for weekly updates all about relationships. Take care.